Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and as we approach a weekend without Celtic, we also approach another weekend without a Celtic manager. We don't have anybody permanently in charge of the club, and it doesn't feel like we're any closer to making that final decision. It seems like it's going to be a lengthy process, and after a few bits of news that dropped last night, and after speculation that meetings are well underway in London, it's still a mystery as to who will take that job on a permanent basis. So we've got to talk about that. We're going to talk about the future of Daisen Maeda as well. Another couple of wee things. Injury issues once again creeping up for the club. It's a bit of a negative feeling this Thursday afternoon, but we'll try and get through all of that and look at things in a positive light. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. For all fans of Football Manager, we have started the new FM26 save over on the members section of the channel. You can join and become a member of the 118 Club using the top line in the description or the join button below. I'll see you there for the remainder of that series. But as for daily content, nothing's changing. We're still here, but we're still waiting on a Celtic manager. So let's talk about that. So we are approaching the weekend, another weekend where Celtic don't have a manager permanently in charge of the club, but a weekend where, of course, international duty means that we don't need to worry about that too much. However, time is ticking and we want to have a decision, or we at least want to know what direction the club is heading in, and without any official communication from the club, all we can do is speculate, and all we can do is live off what the papers are telling us and what the in-the-know accounts are telling us. So you will remember I did a live stream last night where this was the topic of conversation, and one of the huge pieces of news that has broken the last 24 hours about Celtic holding managerial talks in London, and also discussing futures with Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney. Now that was the piece that came out last night, and according to the Daily Record, talks in London are well underway and have been underway all week. We talked about that on stream last night, and I did say that I think this might mean we'll have an idea of what's happening this time next week. I think Celtic will try and come to their decision as quickly as possible without rushing that process. But I also don't think it means necessarily that that person will be in charge next weekend for the game against St Mirren, because all these different managerial candidates all have different circumstances. Some of them have huge payout fees that we're going to have to pay to their clubs for compensation. Some of them still are in contract until the end of the calendar year. And some of them might just not be quite ready to make the move yet. It might take a little bit of negotiating. It might take a little bit of conversation. Just because the talks are underway and we might have an idea of what's happening soon doesn't mean they'll be in the dugout that quickly. So there's a lot that comes alongside that. And I think one thing that I wanted to make very, very clear, and we'll come back to this article in a moment, is that just because all of this is happening, I don't think necessarily means that anyone truly knows what's going on. So we spoke about this last night, right? And we spoke about the fact that it looks as though the top three contenders at this point, according to several sources, could be Wilfred Nonce, Kjell Knutsen, and Kieran McKenna. It looks as though they could be the top three candidates. But, like, nobody actually has said anything straight out, flat out, or explicitly mentioned that those are the top candidates. It's just this short list we keep hearing about. And as for the meetings in London, I don't necessarily think anybody knows what's going on down there or who's down there, apart from the people who will be in the room. And that's none of us. So it's going to be an annoying piece of speculation from everybody, I think, for the next wee while. And honestly, it's not as if every candidate is going to have done the rounds yet, because we're hearing that certain people haven't spoke to Celtic in London yet. Because, for example, Celts Are Here reported last night, just as I went off air, that two key candidates haven't been involved in those London talks. One of them being Kjell Knutsen, the other being Nicky Hyen. And I think people were quick to jump in and be like, oh, well, that's that then. They don't have any interest with the Celtic job. I think there was a quote out there as well from Kjell Knutsen that suggested that he's happy to stay at Bodo Glimt now rather than leave the club. But I don't think that these London talks are going to be over and done with within this working week, within the Monday to Friday that we currently exist in. I think they'll extend forward, and some people might just not have the chance to speak to the club yet. So it's very easy to see a post like this or read something like this and get dragged into to thinking that that's it, they're not going to be involved at all. And that's not me trying to install a false narrative or false optimism into anybody, because maybe Knutsen doesn't have any interest at all. I've said I would be shocked if he wanted to become Celtic manager. But I just think what I'm generally saying is it's all speculation, and it's all really, really hard to try and decipher what is happening when you're not there, when you're not present, you're not in the room. I'm here to give opinion. I'm not here to give exclusives. So you're not going to get any out of me. But what I'm saying from my own perspective is I'll wait until there's something more concrete before I go, right, that's him the favourite for the job, that's him getting it, or he's ruled out from the job. And I think that's how everybody should look at it. So even though we have these reports suggesting that, Knutson, Hyen, etc., haven't been in London to talk with the club yet, I think this is a process that ideally you want done by next week, but could last as long as Celtic want it to, quite frankly. In the instances of Hyen and Knutson anyway, I think it would just be very difficult for those two to make the journey right now and to be in that situation that Celtic ideally would like them to be in. Number one, they have to be very interested in the job, but number two, they are in the middle of their seasons. Bodo are running into a very important point of their season with European football and club football as the season comes to an end. Bruges are obviously trying to compete for a Belgian league title heading into the winter phase of the season, the festive schedule. So it's, timing won't be easy on their side. We're hearing Knutson still with his family and not in any rush, and Hyen probably isn't in any rush to leave Bruges in the situation they're in right now. So it's all going to be very tedious. That's basically that. But I don't think there's any indication as to who it's going to be just yet, and I think we're still at least a week away from that. So we'll wait and see what happens. But of course, one of the candidates who is emerging every day as more of the front runner is Wilfried Nancy, and even though he doesn't tickle everybody's fancy, if you like, that sounded like it was going in a horrible direction, he has been subject of heavy conversation. The Daily Record have wrote an article this afternoon though saying that it doesn't look as straightforward as maybe what Celtic fans thought if he is the chosen candidate, because this article this afternoon that was published around 2 o'clock suggests that Wilfried Nancy will come with a huge multi-million compensation package if they manage to land him. So apparently he has got a multi-million dollar compensation package after penning a long-term contract with Columbus Crew in 2024. This hasn't been spoken about. In fact, when we've been speaking about compensation packages, it's always been more to do with Kieran McKenna, for example. But I think everybody was like, oh, Nancy's season's about to finish with Columbus Crew, so he'll be able to just come over and leave and join Celtic. No, it's not going to be as simple as that. He has a big deal that looks as though it could be riding up until 2027. So Celtic are going to have to pay out quite a lot of money, it seems, because there is a chance he could be up to something as high as $1.5 million a year. So that's going to be something Celtic have to work around should they choose Wilfried Nancy. And then, interestingly enough, the Celtic link that's been spoken about quite a bit, Kwame Ampadu, who is the number 2 to Nancy at Columbus Crew, if he chooses to bring him to Celtic, which I'm almost certain he would also be part of a compensation package. So Celtic are looking at paying out the contracts of at least 2 men should they decide to go with them. But you read these, the one thing that I did want to add is, I'm not getting dragged into the whole opinion on Nancy right now. I know some people are very against it, some people are very for it. Nothing to do with this video right now. I'm not going to get dragged into it. If you want to watch my live stream to hear my thoughts on that, go and check it out from last night. But the point I was going to make is, this isn't news to me. Like, these are the kind of things, if you just want my opinion on things, this shouldn't really make a difference or matter, because if Celtic want somebody, the chances are they're going to have to pay compensation at any point in time. I'm not talking about this specific time period right now, this exact managerial decision we're making, but like, you need to do it sometimes. If you want a good manager and they're employed, you're going to have to pay compensation. It's the case with McKenna, it's the case with Nancy, it would be the case with Nicky Hyen if we went for him, it would be the case for Robbie Keane if we took him from Ferencváros, it would be the case with most managers. We're lucky with Knutson, for example, if it was him that his contract's coming to an end, so naturally you get away with it there, but this is just part of life, it's the same in anything. So like, it's always a headline, you always hear multi-million and go, oh, but you think of the money Celtic have in the bank, and I know the board are stingy in that, but if they want somebody, they'll probably go out and pay. I mean, the money they've paid to managers alone in recent years, Rodgers on record-breaking contracts, etc. Like, they won't have a problem, I don't think, paying these compensation fees. I just hope that they don't go down cheaper routes to try and avoid them. But yeah, that was one of the big stories that came out today. They will need to pay some form of compensation fee, but there is, if you're looking for the final figure of what that would be, we don't have the exacts of his contract. We don't know how much money Wilfried Nancy is on a year. We don't know exactly when that contract expires. It's only speculation that it could be 2027. So there's no point in trying to make it up right now. You can take a ballpark figure if you like, but I'm no expert on that field, so I'm not going to bother. Yeah, to summarise then, I feel like I'm always in danger of contradicting myself at times like this. Like I said last night that I feel like Celtic will have an idea of what's happening by the end of next week. But at the same time, I feel like there's no strong indications to suggest that the decision is nearly made. So, like, I don't want to contradict myself, and apologies if I do, but I do feel like by this time next week, even if we don't hear it explicitly anywhere, I think that the board will know who they want to go for, and we might just need to hold on after that. I wouldn't be shocked if Martin O'Neill has to manage another game, and the one against St Mirren and Paisley, but we'll wait and see what happens. It's a very complex situation. Nobody truly knows what's happening. You can only ride with what you supposedly know. Let's talk about Daisen Maeda, shall we? Because his name has been doing the rounds again this past 24 hours, and we did touch briefly on this during last night's stream. So apologies if I feel like if you feel like I'm just repeating myself or going over old news. Yeah, news emerged last night that Daisen is set for his exit in the January transfer window, and Celtic have begun their search looking for a new striker. Interestingly, they used the phrase "new striker." Now, I'm going to skip to that part here because I think it's more important. I accepted long ago that Daisen Maeda would leave in January, and I've been trying to tell everybody that since June or July. But nonetheless, there was an interesting point in this article, if I can just find it. I think I've probably scrolled right by it. That yes, Celtic are aware of the fact that Maeda will probably leave in January, and the recruitment team has already started looking at attacking options and possible replacements in that January transfer window. The interesting thing is, I'd like to know what they consider Maeda as now. Like, are they looking for a replacement winger? Are they looking for a replacement striker? Or does it need to necessarily matter? Because you could just argue that Celtic need attacking quality across all three areas anyway. So, the squad is very mince right now, first of all. But it's also very full. It's very packed. Like, it's got to be hard to justify dropping people for European games and trying to bring other people in for European games if you're not sure on what squad you're rolling forward with. But like, I think the Celtic should be just looking at all those areas. So yeah, we need a striker. We definitely need a right winger. I think you could make the case that maybe in the left wing it's not as desperate right now because Tounekti's doing okay. We've just spent money on Balak Wisha. Do you give him to the end of the season to prove himself, sort of thing? It is going to be a weird one, but the main part of the story is Daisen Maeda does look to be off in January, and I know that will break the hearts of a lot of people, but he's made it very, very clear he doesn't want to be here. Like, I get it, he's kicked on and he's tried, he hasn't been good enough over the course of the last few months, but I think it's best that we just cut all ties and we let him go. If he wants to move, let him go. There's no point in keeping him hostage. And quite frankly, as hard as I think he'll be a player to replace, sometimes you've just got to take that on the chin. If we're going to be moving forward and rebuilding anyway, then we may as well do it as fresh as we possibly can. I'm fine with Maeda leaving the club. Will I miss him when he's gone? Absolutely. Even though he's not been great this season, I will. Then don't don't let anything that Ryan in the future tells you change that. Like, if I'm down here 3 weeks on this camera saying, oh, I can't wait for Maeda to leave because he's missed another sitter, don't listen to him. I will be gutted to see Maeda go, and I'll be sad that it kind of ended in the way that it has. But I think it's just for the best of everybody if we do move on from him, quite frankly. And he clearly wants to move on anyway. So I've been anticipating this. I think it was basically writing on the wall stuff. It's football. It's the nature of football. It's the nature of being a Celtic fan in the 21st century, I'm afraid. The best players go. And Daisen Maeda's probably next on that list. The other conversation about what we get from him, where he goes, and how much money is he currently worth, that's for another day. I think that value has probably dropped a lot. And Celtic haven't done themselves any favours. By forcing him to stay in the summer and by not recruiting well enough to give him an excuse to leave in the summer has hurt us. Because teams know he wants off. They're not going to pay through the nose for him. You know, they're not going to pay over and beyond for a player that clearly wants off anyway. They'll try and... Celtic will need to accept they're going to be shortchanged for Daisen Maeda. And his form hasn't helped either. So that's that. That's life. We'll deal with that when the time comes, but it's almost certain he'll go in January. And finally, we have to end with a bit of injury news, and I know that's not what you want to hear when you consider the injury crisis that Celtic find themselves in right now, but luckily this one doesn't sound all that bad. However, still not ideal, and this one, of course, is to do with Sebastian Tounekti, who you may have heard by now has been ruled out of his training camp and international games with the Tunisian national squad. Foot Africa reported this yesterday, that the Tunisian Football Federation has announced that Sebastian Tounekti will not take part in their 3 games against Mauritius, Jordan and Brazil. So he's out. Apparently, Celtic also requested that the Tunisian Federation grant Tounekti a 10-day rest period accompanied by a medical certificate detailing the progress of his thigh injury. So he has been ruled out. He will return to Celtic and a replacement will be called up. The only thing is, if you scroll through and you look anywhere, you won't see much about the extent of the injury, how bad it is. But by all accounts, it doesn't sound too serious. It just sounds like something more precautionary than anything. I think there's a chance he's out. If you're talking about a 10-day rest period, there's probably a good chance he doesn't play against St Mirren next Sunday. But beyond that, hopefully he should be fine. Hopefully he should be back into the squad and fit and firing. But we'll wait and see what happens when we hear from Martin O'Neill next week. And his return press conference ahead of that game. But for now, yeah, he has been ruled out. He is hurt. And Celtic's injury woes just keep going. Right, that does it then for today. It's a bit of a quiet one, really. I mean, I feel like a lot of the news we spoke about there was already known last night. The manager situation hasn't really progressed as much as you would like it to. We haven't got any real strong indications as to what's happened. But luckily for you, we have a recording of the Celtic the Thunder podcast tonight, which means if there's no news tomorrow, you won't have to just listen to me. You can listen to the voices of other Celtic fans and the opinions of other Celtic fans. And that'll be live on the channel at some point tomorrow. So until then, please take care of yourself. It's been good to see you. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll see you all next time.